Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Carly Osborne with the Washington State EAP, and with me here is Tim, and I believe it's Smolen. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And
That's correct. And
Carlos,
Tim Smolen, you did perfect.
perfect, thank you. And Carla Starr from SHIBA, and they are going to provide us with a ton of information about SHIBA and what it looks like and what it means for you. And we do also have our interpreter, Catherine, here today for anyone who needs that service. So I'm going to turn this over to Tim and Carla, and just let me know when you'd like me to move the slides forward.
Okay, thanks very much. I sure appreciate it. And Catherine, thank you for being here today. And, one of the very important things about our program is that we're trying very hard to reach all the people that would appreciate or need support from us. And we know for some people, um, the way that we typically do this doesn't work for them. So we're trying very hard to be as accessible as possible. So very grateful to Carly and Catherine for this today. My name is Tim Smolen, and I'm the program manager for the SHIBA program. And with me today, I'm very excited that I have my friend Carla Starr. Carla is one of our SHIBA volunteers. Do you want to introduce yourself, Carla?
Hi, my name is Carla, of course, and I've been a SHIBA volunteer about 8 years now. I joined after I retired from King County Benefits Department, as I thought that was a very good fit for my background, and I've really enjoyed doing it.
Excellent. Well, I'm so grateful that you're here. I grew up in the Midwest, and in the Midwest, we have this expression that there's workhorses and show horses. So I'm sort of a show horse, and and Carla is sort of a workhorse. So thank you for being here. Our intention with the program today is obviously we have a slide deck for you, and Carly and I will move through that. We would welcome your questions along the way. As Carly said, you could raise your hand and she'll call on you or put a note in the chat. And she's sort of our producer behind the scenes. But we're going to try to reserve ample time for questions and answers at the end. So what that means is that we're going to move through a lot of material pretty quickly. So, please understand that our purpose today really is just to do a brief introduction about the program, and then we would certainly welcome you reaching out to us for more details. So with that, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And can we go to the next, please? Great. So the question is, or the perspective for today's program that Carla and I have adopted is, what kind of support will I get from SHIBA? If I call and ask for help, or if I write and ask for help, what can I expect? What sort of are you in the business of doing? So that's the perspective that we're adopting for today's program. And can we go ahead, Carly? So this is a list of some of the ways that we can help. And what you're going to see right away is that these kinds of support that we provide really look a lot like the transitions that happen in a person's journey as they encounter for Medicare. So how do I become eligible for Medicare? How do I enroll in Medicare? What if I wait to retire past age 65? Once I get started, how about changing plans? If the plan I have isn't really working for me, how about a complaint? People are aware that every year there's a Medicare open enrollment period. I might want to switch from, say, original Medicare to Medicare Advantage. Some people, based on their income, may qualify for what we call extra help or for Medicaid support for paying their Part B premiums. Obviously, there is the Medicare prescription drug benefit that we call Medicare Part D. And unfortunately, but it's important to talk about, there is fraud in the program, and there are people who would defraud you, and we want those referrals as well. So this is just sort of a laundry basket of the kinds of things that we're likely to get questions about. Maybe this is sort of like our top 10 list, right? Greatest hits. And can we go ahead to the next slide, Carly? I'm going to essentially just take these in order, in the order they're presented. So the first kind of thing that we typically get questions about is, am I eligible for Medicare? When will I be eligible for Medicare? And could I qualify for Medicare by virtue of disability? And the answer to the disability question is yes. There's a lot of course, misinformation about the Medicare program. And a common myth that people have is that you become eligible for Medicare when you become age 65, that it's a program for older people. But in fact, almost 20% of people who are enrolled in Medicare are younger people who qualified by virtue of having a disability. And then can we go to the next slide, please? So how about enrolling in Medicare? Typical thing that people are going to approach us about right here is what do I have to do to get started? So what we're going to learn is that there is automatic enrollment for people who are already in the Social Security system receiving a cash benefit before they turn age 65. And then there's not automatic enrollment, which requires you as the beneficiary to take affirmative action to enroll yourself. So if you're like me and you intend to work past age 65 because your full retirement benefit doesn't come until age 70, you won't be receiving a cash benefit at age 65. So if you wanted to enroll right then, you would have to take action to enroll. Medicare is not going to automatically enroll you. And then, of course, a very common question of a fear people have is someone knows that somebody they know had a penalty for being late. They missed their opportunity to enroll, and now they have a late enrollment penalty. That can happen. And so we do help people understand about kind of the rules and tools and the timelines about getting enrolled so that they don't face late enrollment penalties. And can we go ahead one more slide then, Carly? We're going to recommend to you, I'm speaking on behalf of Carla now, we're going to recommend to you that if you haven't already, you create an online account for yourself at the Social Security Administration website. And I've just taken a screenshot here of what that looks like. You can do this well ahead of the time that you become eligible for Medicare. It will help you, for instance, track what your forecast cash benefit will be when you retire, or if you elect to take a reduced benefit, or if you stay past your immediate eligible date, you can receive an enhanced benefit. But Social Security is the agency that manages enrollment into the Medicare program. And so starting that relationship with them will be an asset to you. And this is also a good opportunity, again, to begin your journey on fighting fraud. And could we go ahead one more slide, please? Okay, so next on our sort of top 10 list about transitioning into retirement. For those of you who are currently working in state government or a school district or another political subdivision that's supported by Carly and the EAP, a very common thing that happens is people like their job pretty well and they're feeling pretty healthy and they feel like they're still making a contribution and they want to keep working past age 65. Can you do that without a penalty? And the answer is yes. If you're working for a large employer like the state of Washington, you can absolutely continue to work past age 65. You're going to defer starting Medicare Part B until you get ready to retire, and you can do that with no penalty. And you would continue to be enrolled in insurance through your employer while you're still working, or if you're covered as a dependent on the policy of someone who is actively working at a large group plan, you could continue to work past age 65 without a penalty and take advantage of what we call the special enrollment period. And the details about how that works is exactly the kind of stuff that a person like Carla is happy to help you with. And can we go ahead one more slide, please? How about switching plans? You know, the reality these days is people live long, long lives. So you're going to likely, if you get to be age 65 and you're pretty healthy, you're going to go 10, 20, 30 more years. And so the chances that the plan that you picked when you signed up at 65 or 67 or 70 is going to be the plan you have for the rest of your life is pretty unlikely. People typically do switch plans. We absolutely encourage people to compare plans. And so doing that can feel effortful. And that's the thing that the SHIBA volunteers are expert at helping at. The Medicare website has a terrific tool we call the Medicare Plan Finder tool. And that's a great opportunity. For most people, switching plans is something that happens during the Medicare open enrollment period, but there are also what we call special enrollment periods. And these relate to things like working past age 65, which we talked about, or relocating to a different area where your plan might not be available. And there's other kinds of special enrollment plans for things like my plan is no longer available. So certainly these are the kinds of opportunities that people have, whether it's initiated by them or it's initiated by circumstances. And we want to help you navigate those changes so that you can continue to choose the optimal plan for you. And can we go ahead one more, Carly? So the reality of Medicare these days, very complicated. Apologies for that. Sort of promoting more choices has gotten to feel a bit confounding and overwhelming to people. But a fundamental choice for people in Medicare is how will you like to receive your benefits? And we're referring here to original Medicare versus Medicare Advantage plans. You'll hear Medicare Advantage plans referred to as Medicare Part C. They used to be called Medicare Plus Choice plans. On the original Medicare side, then we're talking about something like a Medicare Supplement plan or a Medigap plan. The Medicare and You handbook that you receive in the mail does a really nice job of articulating kind of these two different approaches, but it's still very difficult for people. And we want to help you understand kind of pros, cons, or to compare different approaches, and to also talk about your opportunities for switching from one kind of plan to a different kind of plan. And again, that's a thing that you would typically do during your Medicare annual open enrollment period, October 15 to December 7. However, if you are in a plan like the PEB plans, if you have a retirement benefit through the state administered by the state healthcare authority, then the group has its own rules that apply. But even inside that PEB portfolio of plans, there are options that look like Medicare Advantage plans and options that look like original Medicare. And without helping necessarily manage specific enrollment into specific plans, we can talk to you about the generalities, about pros, cons of different kinds of approaches, so that you can, just apply your native intelligence to problem solving this. We can help you navigate some of the jargon. And can we go ahead one more slide then? Thanks, Carly. So here's a picture of the cover of the Medicare and You 2024 handbook. If you are already enrolled in Medicare, you got one of these in the mail, courtesy of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. If you're not, or if you didn't get one, or if you've already disposed it into recycling or compost, not to worry, you can absolutely find it online. And for some people, that's a bit easier to navigate around. Can we go one more slide then, please? So here's that graphic image that I was trying to depict for you. This is our version, but you'll see a similar version in the Medicare and You handbook, where we're saying this is about how you're going to generally receive your entitlement to Medicare Part A benefits. So regardless if you're in original Medicare or Medicare Advantage, you're enrolled in Medicare Parts A and B. And then going forward, what you do to help it find insurance that pays for the part of the bill that Medicare doesn't pay for is about, on this side of the chart, a Medicare supplement plan and a standalone Medicare Part D plan, or insurance from your employer, or insurance from Medicaid. On this side of the chart, then, Medicare Advantage plans with an integrated prescription drug benefit. Again, not expecting you to retain all of this afternoon, just saying these are the kinds of things that we help with, and Carla and the other volunteers will very much look forward to helping you navigate your own personal journey through this. And can we go ahead one more slide, please? Okay, I'm still working my way through kind of our top 10 list here. We're about halfway through the presentation, so thanks for hanging in there. There are a large and growing number of people in Medicare who are also enrolled in Medicaid. So we refer to these as dually eligible people. They're enrolled in Medicare because they're over 65 or disabled. They're enrolled in Medicaid because they have relatively low income. A lot of people really struggle to pay that $174.70 Medicare Part B premium. And many of them can qualify for a program that we call the Medicare Savings Program that would put that money back in their Social Security check. Problem is they're not aware and they don't know how to get started, and our SHIBA volunteers will be very happy to help with that. In Washington State, we refer to our Medicaid program as Apple Health. A lot of people, when they become age 65, lose their Apple Health coverage and they're referred to us by the Medicaid agency for help to enroll in a Medicare prescription drug plan. We also get scores of calls from people who are taking a few or several very expensive drugs, and in spite of having pretty good insurance, it could be from their job, it could be from their Medicare supplement, from their Medicare Advantage plan, they're still struggling to afford their prescription drugs. And we can help people to compare plans or to look at plans that are sponsored by the pharmacy manufacturers that help people afford those very expensive drugs. So again, just highlighting the kinds of things that you might find it helpful or useful to reach out that we could help you with. Can we go ahead one more slide, please, Carly? Okay, so the next slide then, and this is for the people who have some facility using the internet. This is the landing page for the program that we call WashingtonConnection.org, and it is the portal for people to sign up for both Apple Health or the Medicare Savings Programs, the program that helps pay the Medicare Part B premium. It's also the place that you can test whether you're eligible, send an application for things like food stamps or housing assistance or rental assistance. It's pretty straightforward application. If you're pretty good on the computer, you can probably finish the whole thing front to back in about 15 minutes. And if you want someone to help you navigate through the questions or use the technology, our SHIBA volunteers would be happy to do that. Yeah. And can we go ahead one more? A specific kind of assistance that we provide relates to Medicare Part D. Medicare Part D is the prescription drug benefit in Medicare. It's a Medicare benefit, but it's sold by private companies. So if you live in a place like King County, like my friend Carla, you're looking at a choice of 50 different plans, which is a bit overwhelming. It's nice to have choices, but it's a bit of an overwhelming number of choices. So we can absolutely help you to compare the plans. And as with late enrollment, there is a penalty for Medicare Part D for folks that don't enroll on time or folks that didn't have creditable coverage in the space between when they left their work, for instance, and came into Medicare. And we can help answer those kinds of questions about what you need to do to preserve your rights and protections and what you can do to help yourself if you land on the wrong side of a late enrollment penalty. And then can we go ahead one more slide, please, Carly? So this is, again, just the landing page for the Medicare.gov website. This is that plan finder tool that I mentioned a couple of times earlier. You can use this to compare options for Medicare Advantage plans or for Part D prescription drug plans. Again, as with Social Security, we're going to encourage you to create a Medicare account for yourself online. Two big advantages of doing that. Number one, you can turn off the mail so that you can not receive things like your Medicare summary notices or explanation of Medicare benefits through the mail. Those can all be delivered to you online. And number two, it will help you then to keep track of your bills and potentially be on the lookout, be vigilant about any fraudulent activity or any charges that shouldn't attach to you. So please consider when you're close to being eligible for Medicare, go ahead and create an account for yourself. If you are enrolled in Medicare and you want to compare your plans, this is absolutely the tool to do it. Again, if you have good facility for using a PC or a laptop, then absolutely go check it out. Or if you don't, or if you live in a place where you don't have reliable broadband internet access, one of our volunteers will be happy to help you. Can we go to the next slide, please? Believe it or not, there is a video on YouTube about how to navigate the Medicare Plan Finder tool. It is sponsored by the Medicare agency. And Carla, it's been a little while since I looked at it, but I think it's about 15 minutes front to back. And it's a pretty good kind of step-by-step tutorial for using the tools that the Medicare agency built. And then one more slide, please. We also handle complaints. Obviously, the Office of Insurance Commissioner is a full-service agency. We regulate the insurance industry and manage consumer protection programs. The focus of our SHIBA program, obviously, is on health insurance, and specifically Medicare and other insurances that attach to Medicare. Complaints happen, right? These days, Medicare Advantage plans are a lot in the news for things like denials of authorizations or delays in referrals or other kinds of misinterpretation of whether something is or is not a covered benefit. Those are all the kinds of things in the Medicare space that we would be happy to help you with. Complaints, we have a direct line to CMS, the Medicare agency, to file complaints formally and seek expedited action. And so we would absolutely welcome those referrals from you if you feel like there's been, kind of misdeeds, or you didn't get what you felt like you were entitled to under the contract with your health plan. And that applies both to the Medicare Advantage plans as well as the Medicare Supplement or Medicare Part D plans. And can we go ahead one more, please? And this is the last of my sort of short list of things that we typically are engaged in helping with, or reasons that you might reach out to us. Again, unfortunate to talk about, but fraud is real. There are people out there who would take advantage of your good intentions. These are becoming increasingly sophisticated kinds of schemes. And so we are in Washington State, what we refer to as the Senior Medicare Patrol Project. So we have some grant funds from the federal government to do the mission of prevent, detect, and report fraud in the Medicare program. Fraud costs a lot of money. It does affect the rates. It certainly undermines people's confidence in the system. So we really want to be vigilant about identifying places that fraud might be happening and escalating those to the appropriate authorities, including prosecution of bad actors. And Carly, the next slide then is an example of a real-life complaint that came to us recently. And the complainant is saying, I received an EOB, an explanation of benefits, from my Medicare supplement plan company. The description says Medicare is being charged for incontinence supplies, and it lists the provider as Main Street DME. I did not receive these supplies. I've never heard of this provider, and I'm passing it forward as a case of suspected fraud. This is actually an example of several complaints we had of exactly this kind against exactly this supposed DME provider. And we are now in conversation with the Medicare agency about pursuing them for this fraud. So grateful to the person who submitted this. And if you have a similar circumstance, we would certainly welcome your referral, please. Okay, I'm going to shift off of, Carly, can we go to the next slide then? Shift off of kind of the topical part of our work and talk a little bit more about what you can expect from us. Our purpose is really what we refer to as person-centered counseling. As much as we want to talk about what the issue is, and as much as we train people like Carla to be right on the facts, the main thing is we want you to know that we care about you, and we care about your welfare, and we care about your well-being, and we're going to take the time to listen to you and really understand what it is that you want and what support you need from us, so that we're not taking back something that you're able to do for yourself. And again, we want to empower you to use, all of the resources and tools. As Carla said, she retired from a high-level professional job. She had a lot of skills already coming into this. So we're not trying to supplant the things that you can already do for yourself. We're just trying to help kind of fill in those gaps and be helpful and provide that moral support for you that you need to go ahead and do what you can do to take care of yourself. And can we go one more slide, please? Friends, we're in the home stretch here. I'm going to do a little bit of basic education. I did briefly talk towards all of these different kinds of insurances in the pie chart, but I want to go through it one more time with you, which is to say, almost everyone who has Medicare has some other insurance besides Medicare. So once people enroll into Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B, because it really works like a major medical plan, they find they want some other kind of insurance. Medicare typically doesn't cover all of your medically needed services, and it doesn't pay 100% for those services that it does cover. So we have a substantial number of people who use insurance from the place they used to work. they have retiree coverage. And the example obviously would be people who retired from state government or federal government or other large employers. A number of people who are, again, enrolled in what we call the original Medicare program may choose Medicaid or a Medicare supplement or Medigap plan. And then about half of all the people enrolled in Medicare these days are choosing what we refer to as Medicare Advantage plans. The reason the chart shows it as closer to 27% is that about half of people who have insurance from their job and half of people who have insurance from Medicaid are in fact enrolled in Medicare Advantage plans. So for example, if you were to elect to continue retiree coverage with PEB through the HCA and you signed up for United Healthcare, you would be in the orange colored space employment related plan, but you would also be in a Medicare Advantage plan. So what we're showing in this chart is folks who are in a Medicare Advantage plan that's not related to employment coverage and not related to Medicaid, but all forms of Medicare Advantage plans, 50% and trending higher each year. And then Carla, the next slide, excuse me, Carly, the next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge about Medicare, it's complex. It's difficult. It sometimes doesn't feel like an entitlement to people. It feels more like a gauntlet to people. So apologies for that. And again, that's why we're here. And acknowledging that there's huge diversity in the Medicare program. So the journey is very personal. Your journey is not going to be the same as someone else's journey. And we want to just sit with you and help you do what's right for you. So we're not coming at this from being prescriptive. We're certainly unbiased. It's our job to be neutral and unbiased. It's a confidential service. It's a free service. And as I said, for some people, just the technology itself is a barrier. So we can help with that, as well as ordinary things like changes in the rules. And can we go ahead one more slide, please? Thank you. I introduced myself and you and the rest of the program today as the SHIBA program, Statewide Health Insurance Benefits Advisors, and that's really real. We are also one of what across the country and the 4 territories are known as SHIP programs, which means State Health Insurance Assistance Programs. So in the Medicare and You handbook, all of the SHIP programs are listed. And if you look for Washington State, our SHIP is called SHIBA. So different programs go by different names in different states. We were the first program like this in the country. We were a SHIP program before there were SHIP programs. We're celebrating 45 years this year, which is something that we're very proud of. But in general, these are the kinds of things that SHIP programs around the country help with. So if you're helping, for instance, friends or family who live in another state, my mom is in South Carolina. She insists on calling me. I keep trying to refer her back to my friends in the South Carolina SHIP program, but there are really great programs like this all across the country and the territories. And generally, this is their charge or their mission. And can we go ahead one more, please? Thank you. So how do you find a local SHIP if it's not our Washington State SHIBA program? There's a great resource called the SHIP Locator. So you're going to go to shiphelp.org or call this toll-free number and find out for any of the other states or territories how to connect with their SHIP program. Can we go ahead one more, please? Okay, similar conversation. In Washington State, our SHIBA program is the Senior Medicare Patrol Project. And as with the SHIP programs, there are programs like ours in every state and the territories. We share the same broad goals about prevent, detect, and report fraud. And we provide that one-on-one assistance. And when we go to the next slide, please, I'm going to share with you the contact information for the SMP programs around the country, which is the SMP Resource Center. This is a bit small print, but smp.org or their toll-free number to find the Senior Medicare Patrol program in your state. our state is a bit unique in that we run both programs. Some states run both, and some states they're done through different state agencies or not-for-profit organizations. And then can we go ahead one more slide, please? We're just about at the end here, friends. Thanks for hanging in there. And Catherine, thank you. I appreciate I might be going a little bit too fast this afternoon. I'm kind of just excited to be here with you all. So certainly we love the SHIBA program. And the SHIBA program scope is, although it seems very big, is somewhat limited compared to all of the kinds of things that older Americans need help with. So I want to just make an infomercial for our friends who work in local area agencies on aging. Every county in the state, every county in the country has one of these. In Washington State, we have 13 separate area agencies on aging, and you find them at the Elder Care Locator online. And I'm recommending them to you because they provide support for all kinds of things that help keep people independent and living in their homes. So talking about things like caregiver support programs, respite programs, chore services, transportation services, and all kinds of kind of a constellation of services that can be provided to individuals or their families, spouses, children, caregivers to help people stay in their homes and live independently and with dignity. So a big fan of the area agencies on aging. And if you're not aware, I'm recommending that you consider checking them out. Okay, so next slide, please. Obviously, the volunteers are the heart and soul of our program. We provide, I feel like, a pretty good training experience for them and a pretty good social experience for them. And we're always looking for bright, capable people who are caring to come into the program and get trained and give back to their community and help their friends and neighbors. So if you're interested in being a volunteer, please reach out to us. We would certainly love to have that conversation with you. And Carla is here as our spokesperson for being a SHIBA volunteer. And can we go ahead one more slide, please? As I said a minute ago, the Office of Insurance Commissioner is a full-service consumer protection program. We do regulate the insurance industry. So although I'm here today specifically to talk about the SHIBA program, we do help with all kinds of other insurances. And so please reach out to us at our toll-free number. We live answer that phone 9 hours a day, 5 days a week with a real person. We also have live chat, also with a real person, or you can find us online. And we've got a terrific SHIBA website where we do things like list the events that we have happening in the local community, including presentations. Carla does a great getting ready for Medicare presentation out at the local libraries. We have a terrific list of Medicare resources and publications, and then referrals to other agencies, including Medicare. And with that, Carly, I've managed to make it to the end of the presentation, and it's time for questions and answers, please.
Perfect. So, and just really quickly while I get ready to answer some of these questions, because you did speak about the area agencies on aging. Back in February, we did have Dana Allard-Webb from the Aging and Long-Term Support Administration come give a lovely overview, very similar to this. And we have that on the EAP website. So if you're curious about finding resources to help locate support and help for older adults within the state, yeah, please go ahead and check that out because there's some great information in there. And there are a few questions. So I see a hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute. Let's see if it will. Yeah. Louise, if you want to go ahead and ask a question.
Louise Carey, do you want to unmute yourself? Or maybe Carla, if you read the question aloud, Carla, or I could take it.
Yeah, if you want to pop that in there, whatever works best for you. So I do have one here in the Q&A. It reads, curious about friction / issues associated from changing from vanilla Medicare to Advantage or reverse. In the past, I ignored these tales, but now it is close enough that I need to understand.
Yeah, well, I would say it's complicated. And we have a couple of great publications that describe, in general, your rights and protections about switching from one side to the other side. I think for today, the most important thing would be try to make an informed choice at the beginning, and then expect that once you're in, you're pretty well locked in until open enrollment. So you really get kind of one chance a year to change plans, and switching from Medicare Advantage back to original Medicare or vanilla Medicare, you'll have limited rights for what we refer to as guaranteed issue to buy a Medicare supplement plan. So probably if you read things like the AARP magazine or other kind of advice in print or online, they're saying be careful about hopping in later into a Medicare supplement plan because you may get turned down based on your health status. That's generally true, and those are the kinds of things that, in terms of comparing plans or switching, absolutely reach out to us or reach out to one of the SHIBA volunteers because that's their specialty. That's sort of their bread and butter issue.
Great. We do have a question about, can you talk about the timeline you have to apply to avoid penalties?
Yeah, Carla, do you want to take that one, please?
Sure. When you are initially eligible and you are not enrolling or continuing to be enrolled under your employer plan, you do have the 3 months before your 65th birthday, the month of your 65th birthday, and the 3 months following your 65th birthday. If you enroll prior to the month of your birthday, your coverage will become effective on the 1st of your birth month. If you enroll during the birth month or any of the 3 following months, your coverage will become effective the 1st of the following month. And that's if you are drawing Social Security, you will be automatically enrolled. You don't have to worry about that, or railroad retirement benefits. If you are enrolled due to disability, you will become eligible for Medicare at the 25th month, and then you would be automatically enrolled. You will then have to make decisions about your coverage thereafter. If you are enrolling after age 65, then generally it's because you have had employer coverage and you would be entitled to a special enrollment period. If your special enrollment period and your initial enrollment period happen to overlap, you're in your initial enrollment period. It doesn't happen very often, but I just warn people about it. Let's see, what else can I say about enrollment periods?
That's a great start.
Pretty much covers it, yeah.
Yeah. So right, so I guess be on time, right? That's the lesson, and that 7-month period that Carla described, we refer to that as your initial enrollment period. And if you're going to continue to work past age 65, what we would recommend is reach out and apply through Social Security to start your benefits the 1st of the month after you're no longer working. And that period we refer to as the special enrollment period.
I would add also, a lot of people assume that they must enroll. You don't have to enroll in parts A or B if you're continuing to work and you have creditable insurance. But you may want to enroll in part A. That way you at least have your Medicare card. And on very rare occasions, if you have a very narrow medical plan, it might provide some additional inpatient care, but that's fairly unusual when you have a large employer plan. But the disadvantage to signing up for Part A is once you are enrolled in any part of Medicare, you can no longer contribute to a healthcare savings account. And if you happen to enroll in Medicare after age 65, the kind of gotcha is they retroactively enroll you in Part A by up to 6 months. So it's kind of a tricky dance when you have a healthcare savings account.
Carla, that's a great observation. So again, for our friends who are enrolled in coverage through the Healthcare Authority PEB program or a comparable program through the SEB program, the School Employees Board. There are plans that we refer to as high deductible health plans that have an option of a health savings account attached to them. So Carla is referring to those kinds of plans that as you get closer to Medicare age, you want to reach out and talk about suspending your contributions. Thanks, Carla. That's a good catch. I told you, work horse, show horse.
So we do have a question about the how-to video that was mentioned earlier. Is it available on the OIC website or through Medicare, or is that something just found on YouTube?
It is on YouTube, and it is produced by the Medicare agency, and it's actually pretty good. Have you seen that video, Carla?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
For anyone who's with us, I did mention earlier that I was going to send the slide deck out to attendees. I'll make sure to include the link directly to that video as well. And then when this recording is posted on the EAP website, we'll also have the information for that how-to video there. And I do see a question. It might have been answered that if you work past 65, then stop employment. How long do you have to apply for Medicare? I don't know if we already answered that one.
You have not. It is up to 8 months, but obviously you don't want to wait. The soonest you can apply, the better, because if there is a gap in coverage, you may be subject to penalties, particularly the Part D prescription drug penalty, because it's based on a month, each month, whereas the Part B premium penalty is based on full calendar years. So my recommendation is you have 8 months to enroll in Medicare, but you do not want to delay if at all possible. And getting COBRA does not change your Medicare enrollment periods. So there have been occasions where people said, well, I'm staying on COBRA because I want to stay with my doctor for this surgery. And then they find out that they were Medicare eligible, and the COBRA company says, now we want all of our money back because you should have been on COBRA, and they will recover the monies that they have spent on you. So be very careful when you have COBRA. They can't stop you from enrolling, even if you have Medicare, even if you have Medicare. But how it works with COBRA, that you have to talk to your COBRA administrator. It may be very limited, and it may not be worthwhile at all.
Yeah, thanks. COBRA questions are complicated, and meaning no disrespect, lots of times HR professionals don't really understand the implications of COBRA and Medicare. So for sure, talk to your benefits administrator, but then reach out to us for a consultation, please.
Great.
I did notice one other brief question. I don't know if it would come, but somebody asked about FSA, flexible spending accounts. That doesn't affect your Medicare eligibility. That's money set aside to be used within a certain specific time period, whereas the healthcare savings account continues with you after you leave your job. You can use it for years.
Excellent. Excellent.
So do we have any tips for those using Medicare and TRICARE for life?
Yeah, Carla has lots of tips. Go ahead, Carla.
Actually, not as much as you might like. You can have Medicare, and they strongly recommend that you do, because it does give you more opportunities, but you don't have to have Medicare. It's just that you will generally have types of coverage that complement each other better.
And I'll just say this, Carly, is one of those places where without meaning to, the language can slip a little bit. So there's a difference between TRICARE of the kind that you might have when you're active duty military compared to TRICARE for life, which would be insurance you have as essentially a person who is a retiree of the Department of Defense, right? So if I think about, my father, he did 4 or 5 years in the Army, and then he was out. He's going to qualify for benefits through the Veterans Administration, the Federal Veterans Administration, but he's not a retiree of the Department of Defense. So when we're talking about TRICARE for life, we're really talking about career military people.
Thank you for that clarification. So if someone wanted to reach out to a volunteer to get clarity and talk about their specific situation, what would be the best way to do that?
Sure. You can use the number that's on the screen, 1-800-562-6900. You'll call and you'll reach our offices here in Olympia, and they'll ask, hey, Carly, where are you calling from? I live in Port Angeles. Okay, that's great. We work with the local Olympic area Agency on Aging. We'll get your basic contact information, and then a volunteer will call you back in a couple of days. If you say, I live in King County, you may get the good fortune to have Carla. Or you can go to, again, our website, www.insurance.wa.gov, and you can, then you'll see a list of our local, we refer to as sponsor organizations, the folks that do affectionately the care and feeding of the volunteers. And so you would say, I live in King County, and it'll say, oh, then your local outfit is Solid Ground, and you could call Solid Ground directly or send them a note. And same protocol then. Sam, our volunteer coordinator, will reach out and ask one of the local volunteers to call you back or to email you within a couple of days.
I'd also recommend, if possible, that you indicate the days and times that work best for you, and perhaps even an email address, only because we have a limited number of volunteers and we can only make, at least in King County, 3 attempts to reach you, including, you know, your mailbox is full or you don't have your mailbox set up or whatever, and then we have to move on. So if you do have an email address, and or at least the days and times that are best for you, it will make it more likely that we'll be successful in contacting you.
Because we'll certainly be happy to schedule, right? So if you
Right.
include your email address, then Carla will send you a note and say, hey, next week I'm available Tuesday, Thursday morning. Does either of those times work for you? And it'll just facilitate us connecting smoother.
Fantastic. There are 3 more questions. So this one's a little bit of a long one. It's, my primary care provider terminated my membership without notice after failing to renew their contract with Aetna Medicare Advantage. Is this sort of behavior considered acceptable? Does it happen frequently? And is the Aetna MA plan especially problematic in this regard?
Carla, you want to go first?
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, the reality, it doesn't happen typically mid-year very much. I think that most of the providers tend to accept or decline an insurance policy or provider around open enrollment, because that's where it's going to affect the most people. But theoretically, it could happen in the middle of the year. I can't say that Aetna is worse or better than anybody else. I don't know if Tim has any feedback on that, but I'm sure if it was happening a great deal, there would be some problems with having that company stay with Medicare altogether. But it's not a common occurrence, but it does happen. And so when that happens, you have to either be prepared to change providers or wait until open enrollment and choose another plan that will cover your provider, that your preferred provider. Sometimes changing to a PPO plan, which is a form of Medicare Advantage plan that lets you go out of network, is also a good opportunity during the open enrollment periods, but you will pay more for seeing a provider out of network.
Yeah, thanks for that, Carla. I'll just say, I'm gonna just endorse what Carla said. It does not happen frequently, but when it happens, it's very disruptive. You know, especially if you have an ongoing relationship with your provider or some ongoing treatment, it can be really, really disruptive. What we would recommend is talk to your provider about continuing therapy for you as scheduled. Ask them if there's another provider perhaps in their practice. These days, most providers practice in multi-specialty clinics, not as solo practitioners. So could they recommend another provider who's in the network? And then, as Carla said, if you're committed to following that particular provider, almost certainly they contract with another different Medicare Advantage plan, and you could switch during the open enrollment period for the first of next year. And yeah, Aetna is not any better or worse in this regard than any other different managed care plan. The reality is that nationwide, you know, the high side of 80% of all enrollment in Medicare Advantage plans is with Aetna, Humana, or United Healthcare. So there's a way in which, they're bound to have more of this kind of challenges just by virtue of how big they are.
Great. Thank you for answering that. So next on our questions, does Apple Health still have limitations on the dollar amount of assets?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and thanks for the question. And I did kind of finesse this a little bit when I was talking about Apple Health and Medicare savings programs. So let me just spend a minute here because it's really important. So the Medicare savings programs, there is no asset test and so Medicare savings programs, I mean the kind of program where, as I said, you can get the $174 Medicare Part B premium put back in your Social Security check. Starting January a year ago, we no longer consider assets, we only consider income. There are other different Medicaid programs, and now we're talking about things like qualifying for long-term care or qualifying for home health care services. Those programs do still consider assets as well as income. And that application form that we put up on the screen, washingtonconnection.org, that would be your kind of one-stop shop to apply for any of those kinds of Medicaid programs. But the distinction we're trying to make is that specifically for the programs that relate to Medicare and the premiums and out-of-pocket costs, resources are not considered.
Great. Thank you for answering that. So kind of a question in a similar vein, is there a straightforward process for requesting consideration for services not routinely covered under Medicare?
Carla, do you want to take that one?
Well, original Medicare does not cover routine dental, vision, or hearing, most alternative forms of medicine, and neither does it cover prescription drug coverage, although it does sponsor insurance plans for prescription drug coverages to have you enroll in them. If you stay with original Medicare and you do not qualify for Medicaid, those are expenses you are responsible for yourself. If you have a Medicare Advantage plan, there may be benefits in those areas. They may be very limited. I happen to have had a Kaiser plan at one time, and it said, we have dental. What they really had was for $50 extra a month, I got a Delta dental plan. So I'm not saying that they don't have things, but be aware that you have to be aware of what exactly that means. And I always tell people there's a document called Evidence of Coverage, if you can find it, that is the Bible of what is covered under those plans. But there is no coverage for things that are not covered by Medicare if you have original Medicare. There may be other programs outside of Medicare that can be of assistance. I know that at one point in time, the Union Gospel Mission had a program that gave military people a discount on their dental. They didn't charge them anything for certain services. So there may be other types of things that would be available, but there is nothing under original Medicare for those other than buying them on the public market. I know you can buy dental plans. I think you can buy some vision plans, but most people say I get them from Costco.
Sure. And let me just, again, I just want to endorse what Carla said and provide an example. I had a person walk into our office in Olympia last week, which we certainly absolutely welcome people to walk in if you live in the local area. And the question was, and he had not his evidence of coverage, which Carla is describing as the Bible, but his, kind of promotional brochure from the company. And he said, I need to go get some hearing aids. And it says I get hearing aids paid for. Can I just go to Costco today and pick some out? And I said, well, no, you can't. This is a good example of where you need to kind of read the fine print. And what it says is that we do cover hearing aids. We do cover the testing and the fitting, but you need to use a provider in our network. And so those are the kinds of details that Carla or I would say, beyond the headline, we have dental, we have vision, we have hearing, we have over-the-counter benefits like food or utilities or other kinds of personal care products. It's absolutely true. And be sure that you understand explicitly the details. And that means asking for this document called an evidence of coverage document. It's going to be, Carla, what, 100 pages long, right? They're complex documents. And so again, we would be happy to sit down with you and help interpret what that means, or hop on the phone with you when you want to call the customer service number for your plan.
Great, thank you for that. So, this is a fun question. Please talk about the training for SHIBA volunteers. How often is it held? How long does it last? And what is the expected time commitment?
Carla, can I ask you?
Well, things have changed since I was a volunteer. I know we now do trainings regularly. When I first did it, there were only, like, at least in King County, 5 or 6 people that would get together and do their initial training. And then there was a lot more of the, what I would call personal one-on-one mentoring. That's still very much the case, except I think we're doing larger groups now than when I first started, because there is more interest in SHIBA. And then at least in King County, they have some sessions where they go through different hypothetical situations as a group. And then they still do some one-on-one mentoring. And that's an area where I may be doing more in the future than the counseling because of some health issues. But it is very, very wonderful to do. And you do have resources. We even have a once a week, half an hour session where people will bring up problem cases that they've been dealing with and ask for some input from the senior advisors. In terms of a commitment on time, that's entirely up to you. They do, I think, request a certain schedule that you're willing to commit to for a period of time, but it is up to you. And if you aren't able to do that, then they ask that you notify them. And I think it depends from one SHIBA organization to another. Are you aware, Tim, of any specific time period that we ask them? I think we generally hope that they're going to stay with us for at least a year, because we are investing a lot of energy in them.
And yeah, that's typically about right. Again, it's done a little bit differently. Each, we delegate a lot of authority out to the local programs. I would say generally it's going to be about 6 to 12 months before a person feels proficient to work independently or to work side by side with someone like Carla. We do what we call a basic training program. We offer that each month. And then it is exactly what Carla said. There's that one-on-one kind of peer-to-peer support coaching, if you will. We have a monthly continuing education program that's instructor-led course by our team. And then there's that kind of, in the moment sort of support. It does vary by the place, but in general, we're wanting people to work enough hours and work enough cases to kind of keep their Medicare brain sharp, right? It's kind of a use it or lose it proposition. And of course, Medicare open enrollment is kind of our peak workload, right? So everybody works more during the last part of the year than they do the beginning of the year. But I would say round numbers wise for, most of our volunteers who start out, probably 6 to 12 months to get started. You'll spend 50, 100 hours in training, and then we'd like for you to work 5, 10 hours a month.
Great, thank you for answering that. So again, this might have already been answered, but if I'm going to continue on an employer-sponsored plan past 65, do I need to do anything to notify Medicare?
Go ahead, Carla.
You don't have to notify them at all, as long as you're not drawing Social Security or anything. This wouldn't apply to this particular group, but if it's a very small employer plan, or if your dependent is disabled and the employer plan is less than 100 employees, they may require you to be enrolled in Medicare, but not in this population, as far as I know.
And I would say the exception case might be a person who was already chose to draw their cash benefit. They wanted to get their retirement benefit while they were still working. Right. That person would get their red, white, and blue Medicare card in the mail from Medicare, right? So I have April 6th birthday, so they would say, great news, your benefits are starting April 1st, and they would start taking the money out of your Social Security check. So if you're a person who's drawing a cash benefit before age 65, and you get your red, white, and blue Medicare card in the mail, you need to send it back and say, I'd like to defer Part B. but that would be the only time that you actually have to reach out to Medicare.
Great, thank you for answering that. That actually takes care of all of the questions that were in the chat and the Q&A box. And I do want to remind everyone that we are recording this presentation and we will have it posted to the EAP website as soon as I get through all the transcription and get everything ready to be posted. And if you do have more questions, please feel free to reach out. Yeah, and I Tim and Carla, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely our pleasure, Carly. And please thank Catherine for us for her work.
Absolutely. And there is a comment in the chat that it's good to see you, Tim. Miss you from Elle and I, from Suzanne.
Thank you. That's very kind. I did work at L&I once. I think I wrote in my biography that I did work at L&I. Thank you. That's very kind.
So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. This was a great presentation. And thank you, Tim and Carla, for making time to be here. I genuinely appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Carla, thank you for being here. I sure love working with you.
You're very welcome. I enjoy it too.